All right, let's get it. Yeah. Let's get this kicked off then. It might be easier to answer some of your questions in chat instead of just typing it out. So, but I wanted to focus on the main reason as to why we're even doing the stream here. So, and that is, sorry to state, to actually go over from a ultra beginner's perspective, how to do SFM, like from the absolute beginning. And I was going to say, let me know if you can't hear me, but that probably wouldn't help if you couldn't hear me. Okay, good. I take that as a yes. So, anyways, so again, if some people here have used SFM before, some of this might be reiterative, but it's still going to be helpful. The one thing, and I'm going to go again from the perspective of when I got started. And the first thing I did before I even got started was I looked up tutorials. So I do have some recommendations for people of ones that they might want to look for. First one is the Source FilmMaker channel. So if you're looking for some good information on the basics for how to use SFM, this is a great place to go. These are some old tutorials, 7 years, but all the information is the same. The interface hasn't changed that much. So these have multiple videos. Some are going to cover information that you don't even need to really pay attention to. The main purpose of it is to get you to recognize the interface and know what the buttons do. So I highly recommend checking these out. They're very, very good, especially they're not going to show these ones. There's one of the more recent ones they have, which is about how to do pose to pose. Another channel to check out is Zachariah Scott if you want to learn particles and some more advanced stuff from a guy that drinks while also doing his tutorials. Very good information here. All these locations I'm talking about are linked in the video description, so you can go and grab them at any time. And the main third one is Jimmer Lin's. He's made these videos called SFM Tip of the Day, and they cover very specific topics. Very good information on how to do sometimes ultra specific or even general topics. So definitely worth checking those out. I haven't watched all these. I kind of go through them and look for things that I'm trying to do at the time. Also, I have some tutorials. So if you go to my main channel, I do have a bunch of them right here. There's like 22 right now. I want to put up more, but I always forget. So I hope even this stream, I just hit the button just to make it so that I was obligated. So you can definitely check these out. These also cover a lot more pony specific topics, but some pretty general ones as well. Otherwise, so, in regards to chat too, if you type my name in full, it will bold it and come back here. So it'll bold it and color it. So definitely do that and it'll help out in me seeing things and questions. Anyways, so if, again, starting ultra beginner style, there is the software you will need is Source FilmMaker. You can get that off Steam. You can get on their website. You can install Steam, and it's a 100% free software. You don't have to pay any money. You don't have to pay anything. It's just 100% free, and you can use it for whatever you want. So this is where you would get it. It'll take a little bit to download, but it's not too bad. So once you have it installed, I'm just gonna open it right here and then get to kind of showing you the interface. While that's opening though, I do not have a Discord server myself at this time. I haven't actually, I have one sort of created, but never got to finishing it. But once you get the software downloaded, you're probably also going to want models like Rainbow Dash here. So there are a couple places that I can help and provide to you that will be useful for that. You can. The whole point of this actually for being a live stream is to follow along. So if you have a question of like, hey, I need more information, that do know that there's like a 30-second delay. So hopefully that doesn't affect it too much. But there is a couple places here. So one of them is the Source FilmMaker workshop, which is on Steam. There is a lot of models on here. We're talking like over 9,000 memes. 9,000 models on here, and maps, particles, and scripts. All this is just super, super great. Not the best place to find pony stuff, but it is a really, really good place to go for just about anything else. So definitely, if you need to find any specific models, a good place to search is up here. So, and that is again on Steam. If you have SFM, you have access to the workshop. Another one we got is the SFM Ponies DeviantArt. It's just DeviantArt, SFM Ponies. Again, all these links are below the video here. And you can find, if you go to the animation resources or the SFM resources, a lot of models. There is a lot. The community has been busy for years making really, really good stuff. So definitely check out some of that. There is also Pony SFM, which is just about the same stuff, but you're getting it in a better interface. And so you can go in here and you can browse the different models and everything in here. A lot of these link back to the original source, or if they're at a different place, you can find them there too. So both those are some pretty good places. There's also SFM Lab, but sometimes that can have NSFW stuff, so I'm not going to like recommend it or show it. So, but it has had some unique assets that I have not found elsewhere. In regards to the pony models, because I know that's what most people are caring about, on the DeviantArt you can find this, but I'm gonna just pull it up, and I have a link directly to both for Juice versions. These are kind of like, I don't know, these Generation 3 of the main models. And these are the ones that I'm going to be using today. And so it's Juice that made it, and again, links below. These are the ones you're going to want to download, and well, there's a lot of other pony stuff out there. These are probably going to be the best starter ones you're going to be looking for. So I have my flash box, that's why that's not playing. But so really, once you get all that installed, and so actually I'm gonna go, let me grab one and just show you how you would install, because that actually seems to be a question people have. So I'm gonna grab Groger here, and I'm gonna download his model because I don't have him yet. And if a modeler did their job right, or person is putting up there, and that's 99.9% of everybody, all the models will be in the correct file structure that so you don't even have to worry about anything. So once this is downloaded here, I'm going to open up my user mod. So the user mod is, if you go to your Steam folder, and this is just going to take remembering stuff, you have to kind of go through Steam apps, common, then you have to go down, find Source FilmMaker, game, and user mod. Nice simple directions on how to get there, but it's the same from your Steam folder. I keep a shortcut here because I have to access it so much. To download the models, then, if you just open up your zip file, so it says SFM, some won't have an SFM folder, you're just going to look for folders that look like this. It's going to be the models and the materials. Those aren't just in there for your visual split, it's because these are actually how SFM looks for it. You just take those two folders, you drag them into your user mod, and you're done. It'll auto merge with these folders, and that's all you actually need to do. Installation is really easy for the models if they do their job right, and I have only seen, I think, 1 out of 7 years that had a problem. So it's super, super easy. So so now you have some models installed, you have SFM installed, you have SFM open. Now I want to cover a little bit of what the interface does. Some of the tutorials will, but this can be a confusing interface. It's a lot more simple than compared to a Blender. Is it like Unshaken as if is possible to use Blender models in SFM? Yeah, you can. The thing is, you can't just load up the Blender model into SFM and it'll work. SFM is still a gaming software, so it needs special things on the models. For instance, if I back up and look at Rainbow Dash here, you're going to see a bunch of bones, and so that the software needs to know how to actually bend and move that bone from that position. So you have to have all that extra information in. How do the textures interact? How the textures export? So yes, you can, but it will take some time. And you'll need to know a lot more than that, than just like what I could show you today for how to do that. And even then, I'm a pretty big noob when it comes to the modeling stills. But as for the interface here, normally when you go to open this, and actually I will well, I'm not going to be able to pop up with the initial splash screen, but it'll let you create a new one. And it'll just kind of look like this, where it says, what do you want to name your file? You can name it whatever. I have a bad habit of naming it exactly that and forgetting what I've made. So be a little more descriptive, like that's a bit better. So I do is keep the same directory, and this is going to be your frame rate. 24 and 30 are your, I would recommend. Don't play it too much higher than that. Like 60 can be smooth, but it also can get any uncanny valley. So we'll just keep it at 24. So as for the interface, it is fully customizable. You can move, you can change anything you want here for its sizing. You can even move some stuff around. So say, for instance, that this console up here, I can move it below, or I can move it down here, here. When I go and hover over it, it'll give me different areas. So this is saying lock to the left of the screen. This is saying within this box, how do I want to have it positioned? Do I want to have it below it? Do I want to have it to the right of it? Do I want to have it actually merge with it and have extra tabs? That's up to you. I would kind of just come up with a way that works for me. So as for what all this stuff does on the interface, and for Flutterfly anyway, the CPU tips, SFM is a GPU focused software. So while having a faster processor is a good thing, your graphics card is going to be better. It does not utilize dual graphics cards. So if you have two graphics cards connected through Crossfire or whatnot, it won't work any better than having one. But the beastier your computer, the better. Just the better the GPUs, it's going to be a much better performance game. As for the interface here, so this is going to be your main viewport. So again, this is going to be what you're going to be looking at for anything that you're working on at that time. You can actually switch between kind of your active main camera. So this is going to be what the render would be in the main camera, and then your work camera is just your free-form float camera. You can do whatever you want with that, and it's not going to affect what's the rendered version is going to be. You can open up a second viewport window. If you go under Windows and Secondary Viewport, there is another one here, and this will let you actually see your two different cameras at once. It only keep track of what one is the active camera and your work camera, so you can't have like 3 or 4 or 5 different cameras, but you can have this extra windows, and you can see what the camera sees, and you can still work separately. And you can throw this into the interface as well, so I can put it in here, which I'll just put it there for now. In the right over here is your animation set editor, or ASE. This is going to be where all your models sit, your cameras, your lights, everything that you need is going to be in here. Now, when you first open it, I am not 100% sure, because it's been a while, but it might be with scene hierarchy off, which means everything will be in this one massive group. You're not going to want that. If you turn scene hierarchy on, it will let you group things. So I can say, right click it, group selected DAGs, and it will make a group. Now I can rename this and say this is fences. So keeping things organized really helps when you start to get into a really complex scene. I'm going to try to download Enhanced Ponies. Site says, oops, the page you wanted to visit doesn't exist. Yeah, it was a DeviantArt link. So try leaving a comment there and see if maybe it's down. He might not have the models available at the time. And I think if you even try getting it from the Pony SFM site, it's just a hot link to the original. So I don't know if otherwise you can try. I believe at the very, very bottom of the description there is the I can't get access to it right now, but there is the Nahka models. Those are also just as good, so you can check out those as well. They're basically the generation behind this one, but they're still very, very good. So the one thing too is on these models, like my Rainbow Dash, if I open up this is a nice organized list of flexes. It's not, I have little groups, pony legs, pony wings. These don't come by default. When you first open it, it probably has all the bones in one big massive list. The software needs to know what to do with those. So there is another link that I haven't below to his Zappy's organizing script. And it'll look like this. And this script will let you build a structure for those bones that it's not just one big massive line, and you can have better organization. And you can modify this really to anything that you need. So to use this one, you just download the file, and it will come with one file. And actually this one's already built to be, it looks like mergeable with your user mod. But just so I can show you what the file is, if you open this up, and it's called SFM_default animation groups, you can't change that name. It's going to be a whole lot of, well, actually, let me open that in a easier to read. Oh, that's why. We're going to, I'll just open up mine. So once you take that file and merge it with your user mod, so if I go to my user mod, CFG, you'll see a bunch of them here. So I keep backups because if I oopsed and deleted stuff, you'll have your SFM animation groups here. This file then will have all the different groupings of how to have all the facial things built, how to have it grouped. And you can customize this as you see fit. This one is a custom one that I did originally by Zippy, and I try to keep it updated when things come out. And so mine is much, much longer and built kind of specific to how I need things. But definitely download one of them, because being able to fill in all these models is super, super useful. I like organization. Yeah, it actually should be. I don't know. Can you, if you have access to the description of this video, it should be there, or I believe. Let me see if I can do a quick double check. Wonder if I can watch my own stream. I'm gonna browse YouTube, guys. Yeah, so it is down here. All these. So for the organizing script, it's right here. So that'll get you that same page. Besides that, so that was so the animation set editor is where you're going to have access to your different models. It's also going to be where you're going to have access to some of these different procedural tools. I'm not going to cover each of these tools in this video or in this stream, because I actually have a tutorial, I believe, that covers it. If not, I know that there are a lot out there that cover in detail what each of these do and how they work. But this is where you find those. And here, so this is going to be where all the different flexes of the bones are listed. Bones aren't going to really matter in that list, because you're just going to select a bone and move it. You're not going to like change the actual text values. But when it comes to flexes, so on a pony model, these flexes are what control the face. So get closer to Rainbow Dash here. So you can see here it shows all these different ones, and they're just sliders. So if I pull the slider, it's going to change those looks. And you can do multiple these at once. So you could say, I want to kind of get a squint, but I want her to be a little angry with it. And then so you'll get that. The little slider up here is for what they call stereo flexes. So right now I can only, I'm only closing both eyes, but let's say I want to make a wink. Well, you could go switch this to the left, and it will make only the left side go. Not all flexes are built like that, but for the most part, most of them are. And that one can also let you do partials, or you can go one and then swap and go do another. Look crazy. So you can have more. So SoStream says, so you can have more than one animation group. Because normally I have ones with similar names but for different models, so one would delete the other. Yeah, when it comes to these groupings on here, it's looking for anything with the name of that bone. So that's why head is under body, but not under like pony parts or pony body, because that body grouping was made from something in TF2. So so it's already being organized differently, and I don't want to mess with that organization. So some of the stuff is going to be put in other folders. You could move this down in that file to another grouping and you'd be fine. But for the most part, most of the stuff's going to be out of the pony. If you download a model and it's not in the organized, organized in any way, it's because that file doesn't have those bones included. You can add them if you want yourself, play around with the file. Half the fun of actually using the software is the experimenting. It's easy to learn when you take the time to do it. So to the side of the animation set editor here is the timeline. So this actually has a couple different options that you can choose from. Your first one is going to be your clip editor. The clip editor is going to be covering what you could say is like a strip of film. So it's saying that this is your shot, and you can break it up into different pieces with the B button and say, I want like this shot, however you want to break it up. And each of these is going to have their own individual ASE with their own models. So if I went to this shot and I deleted Rainbow Dash and I went and selected this shot, you see she's still there. But we need to keep her there. Best horse. Below the pictures are the pictures, so that's going to be your video. You're going to have your sound. This is where you can actually load up specific sounds. It has it broken up into dialogue, music, and effects. Those don't actually mean anything. They're just titles. You can load up anything into any of those groups, but it is pretty nice to be able to split up what's the talking audio, what's your music, what's your effects. You can even right click these, say rename, and I had one I just called explosions once, and you can even delete this one, add another one. Yeah, add track. I want to add a sound, and we're just going to call this one bigger explosion. So you can do anything you want with those. And these buttons right here will mute it, so then you don't have the audio play, and this is the master mute. And then down here is the effects or the overlay. I'm not going to cover anything on this because it gets kind of complicated. Normally, I think I've only used the effects bit like 2 or 3 times, but it lets you do overlays and color corrections within the software, which is pretty nice. But I prefer to do all that outside the software because, while SFM is nice having that ability for SFM to have it in there, it's not the greatest of quality. So I prefer like an Adobe software to actually do some of those. The next button here is going to be where you can start actually doing work. So this is called the motion editor, and everything's going to be in green, and that's going to show that everything is selected and nothing is floating. And then when I say floating, it's work that isn't saved. So I can select a smaller bit here. I have fall offs for the mouse wheel. You can play around with that. I actually have a full tutorial on my channel that covers the motion editor because it's what I primarily use. So I'll go into a lot more detail as to how this whole thing works. And then the third button here is graph editor. It's motion editor and graph editor basically do the same things, just in different ways. Graph editor is about like setting up keyframes and blending between them using different like linear tangent or straight line. It's about using these little tools to control everything. While the motion editor is more freeform and lets you, this is like building something, and this is like liquid. So this has some downsides, the motion editor, but the best quality you're going to get is by using the graph editor for your big parts, and then the motion editor to clean it up. But like I said, the motion editor, at least I do have a tutorial on, and graph editor I don't really know much about. I've only used it a couple times, and that was about 6 years ago. So I'm not able to provide too much information on this one. Up here we have the element viewer. This is kind of be your advanced information area. You can definitely get some cool access to some values and changing things that you wouldn't other places. For instance, on here, I can go to my settings, and even though I set the render frame rate prior to here, I can actually go in here and change the frame rate again to have it be something else if I messed up. You can do a lot of toggling for different settings that will potentially be modifiable within other parts of the interface. This is just like the text-based version. You can also open up models in this viewer. Like, so if I went over here to fence and I said show an element viewer, I want to see the model, it'll pop up the model here, which if you're doing overrides or texture editing, you actually will use this. But I'm not going to cover this too much because this gets complicated. Up here is the console. This is just going to be where you're going to have the system messages, but you can type in your own console commands. For instance, there's one called mat reload all materials. So if you change the texture on something, you can reload all the materials within the software. There is a lot of different options with that, but you won't have to use it too much. That's why I kind of have these two over here in smaller bits. There are different scripts you can download off the workshop that will auto do some of the console commands. So I have a button instead for reload all materials, which will just run that command for me. It just makes it easier than typing it every time. So if you look around through the workshop, you can definitely find some pretty neat stuff in there. I know one of the biggest questions I've gotten before is how do you get started? Because like I just downloaded all these models. And I'm able to like break their arms now. How do I get to actually making animations? And I do have a couple recommendations. One is start with pictures. Don't jump into some super advanced animation. For instance, I have a whole boatload of pictures that I've made because they teach you a lot about positioning without having to worry about animating. So it'll be like, I want to have a pony sit down. Well, how do I do that? Well, if you're thinking from an animating standpoint, that's going to get complicated fast. So keep it simple. Play around with the model. Just move it around and say like what, keep it simple. Like you could even just say, at least at the beginning, that like this is a sit. And you're good. Don't think you have to make Picasso right from the beginning. Keep it simple and just play around with it, but make pictures, because all animation is a series of pictures. So if you can make a picture, you can make an animation. I'm gonna fix Rainbow Dash there. She looks sick. Okay. No, we'll keep the arm there. Next is to start small. Don't jump into something big. Some of my first stuff, I wonder if I still have it here. One of the first things I made was just a plane flying through a canyon. I think you can actually find it on my channel if you dig it out. Yeah, I think it's this. Nope, that's something else. So, but it's just keep it super simple. Make a couple seconds video. Don't jump into like remaking a song from Aviators or something. Whoa, just dancing. And next is replicate a scene from the show. There's a lot of people that will say that question of, "Hey, don't replicate stuff. That's copyright infringement." It is if you claim ownership, but if you're using it as a learning tool, if you take like 10 seconds of a piece of a show and you use it as a learning tool, it's great. For instance, where was that? I don't remember what I named stuff. So I think it was the birthday one, but one of the first things I did was, oh, here it is, excuses. So this was actually done within, I think, my first month of working on stuff. So I just took something from the show and replicated it. And I learned so much while I was doing this. Because you don't have to think about positioning or anything. You just see something and you say, how do I replicate this? How do I make it look the way that I want it to look? Definitely take the time to try, find a scene you like, 10 seconds worth, and just make it again. You're not late, you're just on time. Yeah, the video will be available on YouTube afterwards. I'm not getting rid of it or anything. Yeah, so I started with replications, then I started going off into, I wanted to learn how to do some running and some camera work. So this was just about playing with the controls to just get her to run through a canyon. So to me it was very, very simple, but I learned a lot in it. I mean, she's just phasing through the tree there, and I just didn't even care. Or even this one, I didn't know how to do some of the stuff in here, so it's like super, super bad. But this took me like 5 or 6 hours of work, and I learned a whole lot for it. So yeah, Magic Pencil makes for friend. Yeah. I didn't want to. I didn't know how to change the texture on her like at the time, so that was the best I could do. But again, I didn't care because it was a learning tool, and actually everything should be a learning tool to a degree. So in terms of like what ways for getting started, just take your time, start small, and try to replicate something if you can. I've learned a lot about posing because of that. So I will show a little bit like how I do animating and stuff in a sec here, but there are a couple of things, bits of information I want to provide that are frustrations I ran into early on because I didn't know what it was doing, and I want to make sure at least you have that bug in your ear that about those specific things. So one of the things is, if you look at her, she's got like this speckled powder of black all over her head. It's the engine trying to replicate what it thinks lighting would be. It's called SSAO, or Screen Space Ambient Occlusion. And it's just a very efficient way of trying to simulate lighting without light, or to give something depth. If you turn it off, this is what, I gotta actually apply that. You get this, and it's a lot flatter and feels like it has no real depth. So that definitely helps in giving it that extra extra lighting and extra feeling. So if you go and render based on just the normal settings, it's going to look, when you go into your clip editor, because the clip editor is going to process the image and give you what it would be a final on its render. So you can see right here that the speckles kind of go away, clean up a little bit, but it still looks a little rough. And that's because it's how many passes the engine goes over the video to clean it up, you could call it. If you actually look down here in the corner at sample, it's going to say how many different samples it is. So it's saying 1 out of 8. So this is just saying that it's only doing 8 passes to clean up the video. If I go back here, you're going to see it kind of change for a sec, going between the clip editor and not. And that's because when I'm in this mode, it's not processing the image. As soon as I go to the clip editor here, it's processing it. And once it's done processing, then it goes back to the 1 out of 8. Because this is a simple shot, it's super, super quick. If you want to actually clean up so that some of those are a little easier, or for instance, if, let's say, her head turns really, really quickly in a snapping motion, and you have some motion blur here, you can also see here, you can actually count how many passes there are. So that's going to be 8 passes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep. So there's 8 passes, and that's not going to be the best of quality, not a final one anyway. So you want to have a much, much cleaner look for this. To do that, if you right click on the viewport, you're going to have a whole bunch of options that are all pretty useful. The main one you're going to want is this render settings. Under render settings is going to say progressive refinement, which is just going to say to basically utilize these. And it's going to have your depth of field, and your depth of field is the blur that you would get at distance. Your motion blur, which is this motion, how smooth you want the blur of the motion to be. And some subpixel jitter is something I can show you in a second. That one's a little harder to explain. But this is saying how many passes do you want. Right now it says use camera settings. So I don't want that. 8 is not enough, which is the default. We're going to override this to something higher. So the higher you go with these, you're going to be essentially doubling your render time. So the amount of time it takes to do an 8 will be doubled when you go to 16, and from 16 to 32 is double, 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 double. Normally 256 is about where I feel you're going to get the most out of the most bang for your buck. So if I go to 256 now, I did depth of field. So you're still going to see only 8 passes for the motion blur, but it's going to clean up that background a lot. But let's go and add motion blur to 256. And now you get a lot smoother of a motion blur. But you can also tell that it took longer to process that image. So if I go and remove her motion here, we'll put this back up at 256, you'll also see that it will clean up the ears here too. So there's that, a lot of that speckle goes away. So on this video, when I did this, I didn't know about that. I had no idea that there's a way to increase that. So I missed it. So now you know at least how to clean that up a little bit. The sub-pixel jitter is on the very, very edge of, it's going to be super, super hard to see on here, but on the very edge when there's overlapped items, so like the pony compared to the background, sub-pixel jitter will basically like smudge the edge just ever so slightly so that it blends better with the backgrounds or things next to it, or even models that are phasing through it. I would always keep it on. The only reason I would turn it off is say that you did a green screen. So you had the pony here in front of a green screen and you wanted to cut them out and not perfectly. If you have sub-pixel jitter on, that you're going to have a slight green hinge on the edges because it blurred it. If you go but if that's, so if you turn that off, then there will be no interaction from the background and you can cut it out because it will be pixel by pixel cut out. I see. Hello, Original Gaming. Yes, you are here. So, and if you go down here to the ambient occlusion, this is where you can actually turn off that speckled bit. I'd recommend always having it on, but you can turn it off. And you can even have some fun doing outline, which is, when I originally saw it, I was like, hey, that's awesome. I could make some more realistic pony stuff because it'll have, you can create the outlines. You can even change the color of the outline for everything, but you can. The problem with it is that the lines are the same thickness no matter the distance. So from here, it's just a big black mesh. So the lines are fun, but I wouldn't really recommend using them unless you're in a certain distance and playing or in a certain way. You can even turn both on at the same time, but again, you put the AO. And if you even want to see what those speckles look like, how the overlay is, you can do show ambient occlusion, and bam, you can see this is how it is changing the lighting of things that are around it. So you can see even here the ground is darker than the wall, and you can see all these little bits in here too. And apparently her dark evil eyes. As for things in this, if you do turn off progressive refinement, it's just going to be the same as hitting this button. Enabling lighting is very useful. If you have a system that is not that great and you need to increase performance, or not even if you have a great big beastie computer and you want to increase the frame rate on a scene you're working on because it's overly complex and stupid, lots of lights and models, if you turn off lighting, it gets rid of all the shadows, it gets rid of all the lighting, and it puts it kind of like this, like you see right now, where everything's kind of flat and boring. That will drastically increase your frame rates. So even now, so if I'm running around here, you can see down here your FPS, it's running at like 100 or 100 to 250, but if I turn off the lights, it's probably gonna, actually it didn't change it too much. So, but if you do have a lot of stuff in the scene, like all max shadowed lights and a whole bunch of models, this can save your day, because trying to animate when on a software that's running at 5 frames a second doesn't work very well. Yeah, and like you said, if you got a big trashy laptop, yeah, you can, rendering will take longer, but it should still render. So you can downgrade your quality to like 128 or 64. I really wouldn't go below 64. But all that having a lower end PC really does is it increases the amount of time your renders take. But in terms of working in the software, you can go in here and you could say, turn off progressive refinement, turn off ambient occlusion, turn off lighting. And it's going to look really, really basic, but you're going to have a stupidly high frame rate compared to all that stuff being on. Once you're ready to render, then go back in here, turn all your stuff back on, and and then you're good to go. Some of these other settings are for changing some things that are displayed. Like for instance, you can see right here, this is the camera. It's kind of floating right here. And so it's showing that this person or this character is in the shot. The little purple box is showing where the focus is right now. So if I change my focus like this, you can even see in the upper right in the main camera that it shows like a plane. This is saying where do I want to have the focus. So because I have a high aperture, so if I turn this aperture to 0, you're not going to really see any difference if I go into this mode. Background's clear, rainbow dash is clear. Move this camera down. There we go. So no matter where I put the focal distance isn't going to really matter because I'm essentially shutting it off. But if I put the aperture really, really high, it's going to give a massive amount of blur in the background or in the foreground and keep in focus what's here. But it doesn't take much for having the focal distance off to start creating a blurred model. So you want to keep that in focus or wherever you want to have be in focus. So your camera is just showing you with that purple box where that is. If you want to shut off that frustum, that's what those lines are. You can go in here, display, and say show camera frustum off. I don't see any reason not to, or why you would have it off though, because your camera is never going to see its own lines. If you want to show the focal plane at all times, so like right now I'm in the work camera, so it's actually showing I have a plane because it's just a copy of the other one. But this will show it at all times. It can be pretty useful. So a lot of these you're probably not going to have to worry about. I don't think I've ever used any of the ones below that, but you will use these too. For game entities, if you have a map that has certain aspects of it that can be turned on and off, like I think I can turn off the floor bit here. Oh, now I can just shut off the walls, I guess. So you can actually turn off parts of the map, which actually can come in handy. Sometimes it'll let you, by doing that, you can turn off the trees in a map because they're separated. Having other entities enabled can come in handy because there are a couple maps I've seen that like flags and some optional bits don't show unless you have that tagged. But you probably never have to use it too much. I don't think there's really too much else I actually use here. The one thing you might or are going to need is maps. So when you first open a save file, it is going to look like this, no map loaded. That's not very helpful because I want to work in a map. Right now I'm flying in dark space. So if you right click this background and say load map, this is where you can actually add in your map. So the one I usually like to start almost anything I work on with is just to go to stage because it's just a nice little simple one. So the stage and stage big doesn't really matter. And let's open that up and voila, we have stage. Yeah, and Warris mentioned there too, SFM does an autosave. So if you are working on something, like right now it's not going to do one, but that's because I haven't, or, well, no, we'll actually do it because I did save it. But you want to make sure that after opening something up or creating a file, go to save as and save it. If you don't save it, the autosave doesn't kick in because it doesn't have anything to save to. So the autosave will make it so if it crashes, you can recover up to about 10 minutes ago. Potentially even shorter, but it's every 10 minutes that the autosave runs. But otherwise, manually save whenever you can, for sure. Yeah, and that's a hot tip Moorhorse mentioned too. So down here, you're going to see your memory. SFM is a 32-bit software, which means it can't utilize as much memory as a 64-bit does. If this starts getting in the red, you usually save for a while, but over time it will eventually crash you because it runs out of memory. So keep saving often will help prevent that from being an issue. As soon as you quit and open it back up, it should drop it back down again. But if you get super complex scene builds, but it takes a lot, you can have it where you're hitting top end as soon as you open. But I don't think you'll have to worry about that. So one of the other tips, there is going to be a time, and this is probably one of the most frustrating things I've ever ran into, and I will have to set it up so that you can see it. But say that there's some motion going on here. So we're just going to grab the model and just say that over time, the arms lifted. So you're going to notice right here, suddenly it stopped. But you're like, but I animated it all the way. And you can see here, now it's working. You're going to hit this point where it's mainly caused when you start cutting shots from previous shots. That you're going to start having like a model that no longer will do anything for anything you do. So like here, you see that I'm moving it. I can even see it's moving, but nothing is happening. This is essentially because the model died. Its time exceeded what the software was giving it, and so it no longer is being utilized by the engine in a way. The way to fix that is you can either copy paste the model and then delete the original. So now you can see it did work, because then it resets those timers. Or if you double click a shot here, it'll open up to see all those times. And you can see here that, oh, Rainbow Dash is dying right at this point. So we just extend that back out, and now you can see the full animation. The main cause of this is you can see these extend to a certain amount of time past what the allotted amount was when we made it. But if you start cutting these up into bits and extending them and changing them, they're still sitting at an old time. So you have to go in here and change that. It took me way too long to figure that out, and I thought copy paste was the only way to fix it, but it isn't. You can double click it here and voila, fixed. Sorry, I'm just reading through here to make sure I'm not missing anything. So I have my Argo Darman. I like that one. So I have my AO on yet. My model on this stage map doesn't have that grainy pixel look on areas like yours does. Is that normal? Yes, I'm in clip editor and camera 1. Because I don't think there's any like permanent setting, because I haven't. Hold on, I need to fix her. Stop hitting yourself there. Oh, we need horse fixed. I'm not actually sure. It should be like, if you double check when you right click here, see if those are on. It could also be that the model doesn't have it enabled. Most of the ponies should. I don't know of any that don't, but they should have that grainy look of sorts. If you are in the main and you have it turned up, you will have it reduced when you have it rendered, but still, I'm not 100% sure on that one. So yeah, and like Yelp said that, yeah, oh yeah, check that lighting isn't disabled too, because that can cause a difference too, or just any of those settings. But yeah, it took me days, and it actually took me probably months to figure out actually a way to fix that, and I hated that. Number 3 I wanted to cover was jiggle bones and baking. So the one thing you're going to notice on here is like the hair kind of going nuts. And that's because there's jiggle bones, which automate some physics and motion that we're not really getting the clue here on how to act. And I didn't correct it before rendering. So in this case, it does that. And it pissed me off, but again, I didn't care at the time because I was in the learning mode. So the way to fix this, let's kind of see some jiggle bones in action here. So I will actually, let's load up an animation, and I do have a video that covers how to load animation sequences, so I'm not going to cover that here. Just check on my channel. That goes into a lot more detail than I would do. But let's load up. We'll do this one. I export most of my videos as DMXs, so I can load anything up. Let's get this is derpy. So, because they're the same model anyway. So you can see here, when Rainbow Dash is moving, her hair is kind of flopping around with the motion. Now, this is because the software is is automating that motion. It's saying the head's moving this way, so the hair should go this way. And even with the tail down here, you can see it as well. But if, depending on the motion, especially the pony, and I will load up the absolute worst of them. I got too many Fluttershies. We want... It actually doesn't matter. I'm just going to grab this one. Fluttershy is horrible when it comes to the bones. They're built right, it's just that the engine doesn't like it. So if I give her the same motions here, you're going to notice her hair is probably going to do some goofy things. Let me grab a different part of that scene. Actually, let me just merge that one out. Like, or I can even see it on there. Like, though that was a copy paste error, but just watch her mane here. It's going to start doing some weird things. Yeah, there it has a life of its own. Because it's interacting with itself. But every now and then it will do a 180 and it will break, and that's not fun. So the way to fix that is once you're done, and I recommend not doing this until you are 100% done with everything that you're working on, is to bake the procedural bones. So what that means is you right click this model, and I'm going to open this up so you can see what thing happens here. So you can see I got face, body, pony, legs, wings, body. When I right click this, if I go to utilities and down to bake procedural bones, this will lock the jiggle bones or the procedural bones in place and make them editable. So upon selecting, I'm now going to have a group called jiggle bones. So what this does now is that the hair is still going to act as it did. I baked it to what it was, but I now can manually change it. So you can see here, and I'm going to actually on Fluttershy, if I look, her actual jiggle bones worked pretty good for this. But if I go to Rainbow Dash here, go to bake, and go to the jiggle bones here. So this happens too sometimes. If you restart the software, it'll fix it. But the jiggle bones were baked, but now they're not moving at all because it's a glitch. So if you restart the software, it'll work. In this case, for Fluttershy though, at least for this part, it did work. So it's a little bit iffy, but once you bake those, then you can do it yourself. I actually will quite often go and, like for instance with Rainbow Dash here, when she goes to look up, I'll just go and animate the hair myself or something like that, just because I want a much cleaner, smoother look. So I'll just do it myself. Well, that's not gonna work. So you can manually do it, but that lets you do like wind effects, blowing in the wind. If they have a really hard head swing, you can give it a lot more drastic look. But this will get rid of that render where the hair is like flopping all over the place and being a mess. So that's a very easy way to fix that. So it's just to right click the model, utilities, and then bake procedural bones. If you want to reactivate them to make them automated again, you can just say enable procedural bones. Voila, you have an editable model, or the model will automate it again. So in this case, for Rainbow Dash, go to enable, and now all her hair will do the bouncy stuff again. The one last thing I wanted to cover for a tip at the beginning is how you do scaling. So how do you go and change the size of a model? So in this case, I'm going to go with the fence because this fence was not this big when I originally got it. It was actually this big, but I didn't want it that big. She can't she can't peep over it. She's there. No. Oh, there she goes. Now she's peeping again. So I needed a smaller fence. So in this case, I went and added something called a scale to a bone. So let me load up a different one. What's a model that I can load? Let's load a ball. That's a spitball. I don't think we're gonna go with that. There's a snowball. We'll do a snowball. So we're gonna take our snowball here, and let's say that this is way too big. We need it to be smaller. So we're gonna go into our model. Oh, and this one's got a whole bunch of stuff. And this is gonna be the one that has everything attached to it. And we could right click here and say, and add it, but it will add a scale to all the different parts of this model. I don't want to add it to all these other bits. I just want one part. You can add the scale to the root transform. I just highly recommend not doing it. Sometimes you have to. Root is still the base bone for everything, but there used to be an update that broke scaling for root transform, and it ruined a scene build I had done. So I'm afraid of having that break again. So instead, find the other made one so I can see this is one. We're just going to right click it, and we're going to go add scale control to transforms. Once you do that, if you scroll down to whatever the bottom is, you'll see this, and it's just going to add a nice slider for it. So you can make it big, small, whatever size you're needing. In this case, let's make a little snowball. And then we will throw that rainbow dash there. Amazing animation. So you can do multiple scales. So in this case, there are a couple different bones on here. I could add another one to this and say, but I want this part to be big. So you can mix and match. It's the same thing with ponies. But ponies have one thing about them that you have to know about if you want to scale them. So if I wanted to make Rainbow Dash really, really big, I'm going to grab her pelvis, just because, again, I'm not trying to grab the root. Add a scale, and I will go big, big, big. It will start having some issues with the edges here if you go too big, where it'll look polygonal or something. But normally you shouldn't have to make a pony like super, super big. But the other thing that's going to go wrong is this. So the model's going to kind of start collapsing in on itself. And you might be like, well, why the hell is it doing that? It is doing it because the jiggle bones that we brought up beforehand are bones, but they're not visible. So when you scale something, it's taking that scale value and it's basically going up the skeleton of everything, and it's all following the same scale so that it goes together. Well, the jiggle bones aren't editable, so they don't get that information, and so they collapse back to their original size when the jiggle bones automation kicks in. That causes them to basically collapse into the model. And because the so you can see it here, little teeny bits of the hair. Yeah, and even here it kind of starts breaking too. So stop moving. The way to fix that is to bake it before you scale it. So if I go to bake, and then I scale up the model, it won't have that problem. At this point, the automation is not running anymore, but now it has a bone that it can scale with it, so that you don't have to worry about it. I have found that if you keep the procedurals on and you scale the model by about 10% either direction, you're fine. For instance, when I had to do a little pit video, I wanted to make her smaller than everybody else, but anything more than that started breaking. So I made her 10% smaller and I made everybody else 10% bigger. It made about a 20% difference in size then, and all their automations still work. It did end up being, though, if you do that, so I'm going to make her a little bit bigger, that the hair will still go back to its original size, but now it'll just be smaller, or look smaller. So go a little bigger. So you can see the tail's kind of collapsing a little bit there, but it still works at that, well, never mind, it was working. But like with the other models, I can select the wing here and say, I want this wing to be really big. Oh, actually, that's something else I can cover too. So I went and grabbed the open wing, but I don't have the open wing showing. So I'm just going to right click the model, set body group, and this lets you choose some of the other options. So you can see here that they have goggles and badge. I'm going to go to, which wing did I do that to? Right wing. And I'm going to set this, instead of closed, I'm going to select new. Now, oh yeah, she's going to fly. Let's balance her out here. There. Oh yeah. She can fly. She likes them. Look, she's happy. She's go fly so fast. In this menu too, just a side note, so like here I can say I want to have the goggles. Boom. I want to have a badge too. Yeah, she got a Wonderbolts badge. So those are all built into the model. The difficulty with some of those is that they're not going to be editable. So I can't like take these and like pull them off her face or anything. They're kind of attached to it. There are versions out there you can download that are, but like even this one has it where I can say, actually I want the goggles, but I want it on her neck. And you can even go and shut off her wings. Now she's sad horse. Anyway, so that's most of the tips I wanted to cover. I know that there was some questions that came up I can try to answer. Otherwise, I was going to try to show a little bit of how I go about animating. I do want to iterate that the way that I animate is the way that I animate. It is not in any way the right way. I never went to school for it. I never had anybody show me. It's just the way I learned from either looking up stuff or just guessing. So some of it might not work the best, but it's because it's just the way I know and I stick with it. But otherwise, I do want to try to get through if there's any questions that I saw. So like Sapphire asks, how do you attach stuff like wristbands or clothes to a model that is not part of the body group? So normally, if I'm going to delete this. Actually, I'm going to just delete Rainbow Dash. We're going to load up a new model. Let's load up Twilight. Let's just do, there's the one I want. Get rid of that too. Got Twilight. Okay, so there's two different ways that a model can come in. It'll be either body merge or bone mergeable, or it will not. So an example of a bone mergeable model would be I'm trying to think of what's that called? Mechanic? No. Try to remember the name of the outfit, the Fallout one. Was it just FOE? Because I know that those ones were bone merged. Well, the other ones I can't. Actually, and I bet you this one is. We'll just do this one. So let's say the med kit's here. Something that is bone mergeable, when you open up the model, will have other bones in here that are named the same as the model that you're trying to put it with. So in this case, you say root transform, pony, pelvis. obviously this model doesn't have a pelvis, but it's because it's attaching to a pelvis. If it is this way, it's super easy to bone merge them. So all you're going to do is you're going to take the model that you want to have it applied to, so in this case Twilight, and I'm just going to drag it on top of the model that you want to have locked to her. That will automatically take any bones that have the same name and lock them. So now if I move her, this moves with it. But obviously I don't want to have it floating out here. I want to have it on her back. Well, also the nice thing about being bone mergeable is if you select it, its X, Y, and Z coordinates right now are all based on how far it is from its parent bone. So since it's locked to this model, its X, Y, and Z's are how far forward, sideways, and up it is from that model. Meaning that if all of these values are 0, it's on its parent. So we just select this, hit 0, bam. Obviously the wings don't really work in this case, but that will make a bone merged model go with. In the case that something is not bone mergeable, and in that case it's going to be a model that doesn't, let's go with hat, but I don't want to, that's going to be probably bone mergeable. Not Dota, that's not a hat. That's also going to be a one. Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay. So this hat has a bone of party hat. I can't lock this to the pony because it doesn't have bones that merge. So to do this, you have to manually position it. So I still recommend that if you do this, it will still lock the root. But if I 0 it, it's not going to really do anything. It's just putting the hat on the ground. What we're going to do is we're going to take the second bone here and we're going to put this in the position of what we'd want the hat to be. So we're just going to move it up to here. We'll put it on the little head. And that's a pretty small party hat, so we're going to definitely want that bigger. So first we're going to add a scale to it. And we're going to make it bigger. So let's make it, she got a big hat. Yeah, she likes that. Okay. We're going to get it in the position we want. So let's just say that that works. But if I go and move her head right now, and it's not doing anything, and Pony is not sad, is sad about that. She's very sad. She wants the party hat. She also wants access to both her eyes. There we go. Now she is rightfully sad. So to lock that there, we're going to want to find her head bone. So this is the head. And we'll lock it to the party hat. Now, even though they're not the same name, I can still do this. Before I did it by group, now I'm doing it bone to bone. So again, I want to find the parent, in this case the head, and I'm going to drag and drop it on top of the party hat one. When I do that, now when I move head, they'll be locked together. So now she is broken. I gotta get rid of that one. There we go. Now she's happy. She's there. She's happy. Okay. So that would be how you do it without it. You can do that with any bone. Anything can be locked to another, or any bone can be locked to any other bone in that way. Intel for laptop shouldn't affect your AO that I know of. I'm not sure what's causing that. Like he can make emotions I struggle with a fly animation. Well, a lot of that is just, it's time. I spent a lot of time in here, so it's second nature on a lot of it. So I know what buttons to hit to do what. But it's the more time you spend in here, the more things become second nature. You'll definitely learn really, really super quickly. There's one issue. The phase has become much weaker or rendering. Do you know how to fix it? If you do, you show when you'll render. There is one. The actual flexes themselves shouldn't change from beginning to end. Whatever you give it, it should be what it's rendering at. That I wouldn't be able to. I wouldn't know exactly what the cause is for that. There is one issue that does cause, and that is, and I might be able to show it here. It's just actually, let me. I will give you an example, but I have to modify something so that it actually works. Ignore that. So there is an issue where when you go to render something at the very, very beginning of the shot, it takes time for flexes to work. So let's go and open up Remembrance. So this one had that error and I missed it when I rendered it. Again, if you're looking for pre-made animations and stuff, the DeviantArt or the Pony SFM have pre-made animations that people have given out for free to use. I actually have not reinstalled the map. I had a crash happen a while back that I ended up losing my maps. So I had to fix that, and I'm actually going to have to re-download it. So you actually, here, we'll get the real map, or real download stuff. So I'm just going to go and download my own. Let's see here. Usually right at the front there. So we're going to download a map. There we go. There it is. And so I'm just going to open it up. And again, I built this all to be mergeable. So I'm just going to take, what is this one? Okay. I don't want the save files. And I'm just going to drag them into my user mod. But I'm not going to have it overwrite anything because I don't need those. So, all right, now I should have access to it. And that was called, I don't know what I called it myself. Element Hallway. There we go. When I made it myself, the video Remembrance was actually originally called Awaken. I renamed it based on kind of running a poll for a bunch of different other names. And also Awaken gave a idea as to how it was supposed to end, so I would change the name. So, so that's why the map used to be called Awaken. I don't know what happened. Like literally all my maps just poofed one day. I had a crash and I had to do some weird stuff and all my maps disappeared. Which really, there's going to be something to lose. The maps are fine. I can always get those again. So, so this is Remembrance, yeah. But there is one scene right here when she goes to open her eyes. So, like I said, the flexes take time to activate and to turn on. So if I go through and I go real close here, and you can see I'm moving by frame, as soon as I enter this shot, her eyes are open for a little bit until the engine kind of kicks in. If I get it off the clip here, you see, so this is what it looks like. If I move this at all, it's going to close them. But it's because the engine needs time to process those flexes. Well, I forgot on this, and if you actually are watch Remembrance here, oh wait, no, I fixed it in that one. I fixed it before the release. You can actually see the eyes stay open for a sec right at the beginning of the shot, and they close right away. It's because I forgot to. Let's see if I can catch it. Yeah, you can see that they're actually open. and that pissed me off that I missed that. So to fix that, it's actually very, very easy, just slightly annoying. So what you need to do is you need to give the engine time. So once you've done all the rendering, you can go through there and see if there's one that did that. And that's just not just eyes. Anything that's a flex, which includes anything with the mouth. Some parts of the body have flexes that work with, but mainly the mouth and anything on the face or have a flex attached. So to fix it is, for one, I recommend always rendering out as an image sequence, not as a video file. The MP4 codec for SFM is very poor. So if you render out as an image sequence, you can use some kind of other software to merge it into a video. So what you do is you render the whole video, then you grab this, you move it back like 6 or 7 frames, and then you render the shot again. Name it something different. And then this part will have time to close the eyes, and then from then on you can just replace those couple frames with the eyes that were bad. That's the only way I really know how to fix it. I don't have any of those actual renders on my current hard drive, so I can't actually show you that. But if you do have that happen, that's the best way to fix it. How do you put textures on lights to do those flashy spell circles? I'm guessing you're talking about some of these things. So this model was built by the fourth Aggie. I requested it and he built it, and he exceeded everything I needed to make it so that this thing looks great, because he put a lot of extra effort into making it do such. So these actually have like gaps in here, and you can actually download this model. He did make it public for download. I had to do some weird trickery. This is one of those things, once you get to know software. I have a light that is coming up through the floor and is cut off so that it doesn't start shining until it is right inside this gap right here. You can actually see kind of the line of it right there. Oh, there it is. You can see it starting right there. I'm not sure what the compression is on the stream. Yeah, there we go. And it's a shadowed light. So once it starts at that point, it's going to only come up through the gaps. So it's going to create those fancy lights coming up. As for lighting the textures underneath it, this is why Aggie went above and beyond when it comes to this. Oh God, I don't even know how I name these things. Pentagram. I have overrides on these. He added a whole bunch of materials for all the rings and the different pieces in there, and then I added a super bright glow to them. I basically took the texture and I told it to blow the color up by 20 to 30 times or more, and that just created a really neat glow. Since they're all individual textures, I could put individual colors to each, and that's what gave it the really cool effect. So I had an idea for it. He enabled me to make it even better. So that was super cool. As for all the spinny bits, those were all done with particles, and I'm not going to go into particles because that's it. I could go for like 7 hours on that. One of the neat things is one of these particles is animated, so these ones that are spinning are actually me selecting I think I have it called something different, but oh, spinny particles, there we go. So you can actually see that these are all actually set to spin in a circle around her, but it's only going to update where they are on each frame, and since this is running on a low frame rate because there's so much stuff going on, you can actually see it like jumping around weird. Yep, I'm streaming on here instead of Twitch. I do normally, so people don't know, I stream on Twitch twice a week, Tuesdays and Fridays. I'm streaming on YouTube this time because I don't want to spoil things. That's why I normally have it on Twitch. I keep it separate. But so this is supposed to be helpful and doesn't have spoilers. So I'm putting this one on YouTube to help ensure that most people that want the knowledge can. It's like she's in a light prison. Um, and do know that if you mess, one of my favorite things in SFM is doing something wrong, because sometimes things that go wrong end up being funny and can help things, but it means you learn something more. Like for instance, the anthology short I made not long ago, this one, at the end, when the audio cuts out right there, that was actually an error. I extended the amount of time for the video past, or I extended the video, but I forgot to extend the audio. When I listened to it, it cut out right then. And then I'm like, wait a second. And so I added an explosion and I left it. It was perfect. So sometimes things going wrong will help give you the ideas to actually make something better. So let's see here. I know Boris might have answered that, but so let's say I'm putting two different pony models in the prompt that asks me to replace texture files. If I say don't replace, what would happen? If you don't, one of the things when you go to put in models, and I will just open the user mod and we will go to one of those areas. There is a folder called common. So a lot of the stuff that goes in here is textures that are going to be in common, not just between this model, but other ones. Maybe in the same pack, maybe not. Some of those models are, say, eyelashes and teeth. So every model is going to come with those, but they're all pointing to the same file. So when you go to install it, if you're brand new and you hadn't done everything in there, yes, it will ask. It will just go in there fine. If you have some of these common ones already in there, it will say, do you want to overwrite it? You can just look at it and say, it says teeth. And you'd be like, yes or no. It's not going to change too much. If you do overwrite it and that one is different, it will make all your other models utilizing this same texture different. Like teeth doesn't matter. It's just a big white block. But if you don't overwrite it, it just means that that model is going to use whatever one that it was looking at. And whether or not it's the correct one, don't know. It's kind of going to be a situational thing. What do you think of the official Hasbro released 3D Pinkie Pie thing? I have not actually seen that yet. I'm kind of holding that off on that because I have a feeling I'll have opinions and I don't want to have opinions. If I'm correct, he usually uploads to Twitch streams on YouTube. Yeah, I do have a second YouTube. If you are ever bored and you want to sit down and watch videos for the next probably 4 years, you can go to this. I have 443 videos averaging 3 hours each. So yes, you're looking at like over 1,000 hours of content. But this does contain a lot of spoiler stuff. So if you don't want to see things beforehand, don't watch it. But one of the cool things you can do is, for, say, Remembrance, if you go way back, I worked on Remembrance a lot on the stream. So, wow, gotta go way back. So yeah, so if I get back to this point, you can see this is me working on Remembrance back in. This was right before it came out, actually, because this is 2015. So yeah, you can go back and see how I made things and the process behind it, and it's pretty neat. But you can go even back further than that. I started streaming, I think, 2014. So yeah, so it goes back 5 years. Now it's back when Luna's Banishment. This one I have like 2,500 views. I don't know. What's your opinion on rigs? From what I've noticed from your live streams, you don't seem to use them. That's because I don't like them. Not that I don't like rigs. I don't like the pony rigs. So, and I can see. Oh, and if you want to, if people want, I have a lot of really stupid stuff in this video I can show you that I just sits in the background. But we're gonna just load in. I want to Earth ponies, so we will do. Let's do Applejack. I don't want to deal with wings. I joined the fandom before that. I joined in 2012, but I didn't start streaming. I've been streaming once or twice a week since 2014. So that's why I have so many of them. So if you want to add a rig to a model, you just right click it, rig, and then some are built in here. You can add stuff to this list, but if it's not on the list, you just go to load rig script and go back a folder, and these are where I usually hide mine. No, wait, no, one folder back. Yeah. So I have a slightly updated one from the original one that went out, and then I tried updating it myself and it didn't work very well. So this is for an earth pony. And again, I haven't done this for a while, so I'm hoping it works. It did. No, the rigs are nice because normally when you go to do motion, it's going to be based on you moving the bone and all its children bones, but that's it. It will slide through surfaces and whatever, but a rig will do automation for some motion. So for instance, if I grab, let's see, her pelvis here, it will automate some of the motion with the legs. But the one thing I don't like about it is the pony ones tend to make pause in the front when you go down. And normally then that's just like a little bit of correction. Boop, boop. You do this and it will correct the issue. But some of the more complicated motions I've done makes it so that it ends up getting in my way because I want to twist and break the model because we're trying to replicate a 2D medium and a 3D medium, and 2D can cheat a lot with how the bones move, and here I can't without like twisting her elbow around and like stuff like this. So I don't want Tootsie Rolls for legs. So the back legs actually work pretty good. But even then, it didn't feel like it was saving me much time. So I just never bothered with it. Instead, you have to do you have to be a lot more careful. But yeah. Let's see here. In terms of some stupid stuff that's in here, like I think it's this one. I just have the WTF folders. Like I have Spike breakdancing. Oh yeah, dead. Oh, it's not dead. It's just their friends. It's because in this case, she's dead. But a bunch of these, like I don't even remember what's this one. Oh, it's just dead again. That was a joke for a while. What is this? Oh, yeah, this one. Oh no, I'm thinking of a different scene. What was this one? Oh, this is that actually has a lot of blood. I'm not gonna do that one. Like every one of these scenes when I was streaming it, we just did something stupid. Interesting thing with this shot. If you look really closely at her eyes, there's a you can actually see I have put a light shining right in her eye that went in reverse upwards here to actually give a better 3D effect for the lighting. So I found so I think I found out why I don't see the AO. It's because I have Intel according to what I found. But I have an Intel as well. I'm using 9700K, I think. So I'm using an AO. And is it how important to a video with ponies is AO? Not all that much because I mean it depends. I think that if you're doing a darker scene, the AO or the ambient occlusion is important, but if it's a brighter scene, actually not so much. Like in this scene, if I turn it off, you barely notice. It's just in the neck. So it really just depends on the scene. But you can definitely make it work. It could be a style of sorts for stuff. And actually, you can play with the AOs. So your camera actually has a couple settings. I want to make sure this is the right one here. Yeah. That lets you modify it on these ones. So you can actually see it changing the way it's around the character. And that actually makes it so you can make more cartoony looks or turn it off or something. They're actually, I usually go with something about this for a lot of stuff now because it still maintains a cartoony look, but for this video it worked better being with the standard values. Yeah, well, go ahead. I've actually seen, they've made some pretty cool stuff with it already that I've seen. So this map is crap though. Like there's a hole right here. Yeah, purple wall fix. Yeah, there's a hole and I couldn't get rid of it. It was just a missing texture in the software map editor. It was there. It was fine. I tried deleting it, recreating it, and it kept keeping this damn hole in the wall. And it was pissing me off. So I just said screw it, and I just textured a block to look like it, shoved it up against the wall, and then called it good. Lighting isn't working right now, but normally it'd just be dark. That was a problem. These poles aren't even touching the actual ceiling. Didn't care. I didn't know. I kept trying to. I didn't know how to bake this part of the room, and it was the reason I rage quit the video to begin with. So when I came back to it, I just like rounded this part of the ceiling, called it good, said screw it, keep the camera low, and voila. I even put a lot of effort into this ceiling right here with all the flags and the all those were custom textures, and that video I never looked up. So, oh well. May need help with the glass paintings. They are pretty small for the place marks. You can definitely scale them up. So they scale up just the same way. Where would they be hiding? Statue room props, windows. There we go. I thought I scaled it with the pre-saved file. If you need, I can get you actually the exact value. So it should be at 0.3455. So 3.5 times as big. But this, oh yeah, and this is the, if you actually look at the windows here, the orientation of where they're looking is different. So Applejack, everybody in these shots are looking in, but at the end, because I didn't want to redo the animations for the breaking the windows, I just put them in their default stand. Nobody noticed. 0.3455. Yeah, because that was the scale of the window. So if they're small, that should be. So if you go to your scale here, you can actually select a specific value. So in this case, if you double click it, it'll default to 0.1 as its default size. And then if you just type in anything else, it will go to a bigger value. There is for a tip here too, if you right click one, if you say set the default, it'll always jump back to whatever the size is for its default sizing. So in this case, the little itty bitty rainbow dash. And if you right click and say remap slider range, you can actually change its range. So in this case, it's saying 0 is the minimum because that's going to be the smallest you can get something. 10 would be 100 times its size, but its default is 1. But you could say I really want to make it big, so I want 100 as my max, and then you can make enormous rainbow dash. Can't even look up; she's so big. Well, there we go. Behold. Praise you, new Lord and Savior. I don't know. Sometimes you can go into negatives. You know, let's experiment. Negative 10, 10. Okay, so it does have a negative value. All right. I am curious. How do you do negative sizing, SFM? Oh, yeah, I was thinking that's what it was gonna do. It just it made it upside down. Oh, and it kind of. Oh, it inverted it. That's neat. Ooh, that's cool. I don't know how I'd use that, but it's a thing. No, get back in your hole. There you go. All right, say you. Trying to think if there's any, because there's a lot of things I learned in this video about how to do things. I'm trying to think some of the tips I can give on cheating stuff. Oh, so here's one thing. So when these statues explode, like there's the rocks that go flying up in the air. So I didn't animate those. Hell no. I'm lazy. That is not. I'm not gonna go and animate all those rocks. And so there actually is models that SFM or at least Half-Life and a lot of these other games have that have pre-made animation. So I'm gonna go over here and I'm just gonna load up a model. I'm doing well, Filmer Brony. How are you doing? And we're gonna say explosion. So some of these, if you look at like this, it's just a pile of rocks. And this is actually the main one I use right here. And this is, I think, the same one that blew up there. So if you go to sequences, you can actually see some of these. So idle means this is just going to be its base pose. End is going to be, this is blew up and this is what it looks like now. But boom is going to be the act of exploding. So it comes pre-installed with some of those. So I'm just going to load this model and you're going to see on the ground bunch of rocks. They're not going to move right now because you loaded it in its idle stance. So you have to do is you have to right click, import sequence. And when you select that, then you can choose from here what option you want to have for movement. So I want to go boom. When you do this, it's going to put it in repeated sections. So I don't want to have all like it blow up and then immediately like collapse back together again. So I'm going to select everything before this point and I'm going to say out. So out is going to take everything that's in this animation bit and it's going to have it equal what's at the end of it, which is the beginning. It's going to say out. And then I'm going to find the end of it right here, and I'm going to say the opposite, in. It's going to make everything equal the in. Now, boom. And these are all individual bones, so if you want to go through and you want to clean it up to make them move differently, you can. Right now, all the rocks are about an even size. If you wanted to, you could select every bone that's in here. And we're going to say add scale. It's going to make a whole bunch of scales. And then we're going to use something called jitter. So jitter will just randomize the stuff over a time frame. So if I hit this with jitter, it's going to just change the scaling drastically on everything. So I don't want to be too big of a difference. I just want a little bit. So I'm going to go, let's go with that. But this is going to make them like do some weird like pulsing action, and we don't want that. So we're just going to pick a spot that looks good. Let's say here. And when we're going to do playhead. And what playhead's going to do is it's going to take everything that's in the selection and it's going to have it equal wherever the playhead is. So right now my playhead is looking right here. If I hit playhead, it's going to lock all that animation down into this one point, and now it'll just sit like that. Now when it blows up, it'll be different size rocks. Easy. Exopollution. Not sure what that says, but it looks cool. What do you do when needing to transfer your entire SFM user mod directly in models when transferred to a new computer? I have had to do this once. What you do is go on the new computer, install SFM so that all the files are there, and then essentially go into your files here, your user mod, but really to here, this game folder, as far as I know, just copy paste it. I did it on my laptop and it worked fine. Surprisingly, I was able to run Remembrance. So everything that's in SFM that runs comes out of here. The only thing I might have issues for is if it has any directories that it's looking for outside of that. It might run into problems, but the only time that happens is if you're trying to open something that's the save directory. It shouldn't have any problems. So that's really all you have to do. It's just copy paste. I just recommend installing it first on that system to make sure that all the back-end stuff works. I think that you can copy-paste the whole Source FilmMaker folder over and then go to install it. It will just see it's there and save some time, but it's just up to you how you want to do that. Would you make a Remembrance reanimated? Reanimating it, but it looks somewhat different, more effect and design? No. The only reason I would not want to touch that one is I feel like... Well, two reasons. I feel like it is in its own world now, with like Ashley H making the Remembrance radio drama, Prince Whatever having a song that was from it. There's a lot of people that worked in the universe, and I don't want to poke too much into it. And number two, because I don't like revisiting stuff if I don't need to. I like sometimes running jokes, but for this, I feel like it would be something I wouldn't want to play with too much. I did originally have a prequel type thing for this video. I don't think it's in this save file. No. But I have... It's on my DeviantArt. It's not too far back. So these shots right here were originally built in. It's in this map. You can actually see the wall right here. It is located right here. So you can see the corner of this map. That's what that is right there. So this was actually built outside of it. And I was really proud of this because it turned out really, really nice. And there was going to be a prequel with the Remembrance of Twilight and Celestia having lunch out in this area that brings up the rest of it. But I never did it because I kind of get to a point of I just want to be done with this video. Oh, there you can actually see its walls now. So I ended up throwing it out. In some renders, the eyelids of my ponies look weird. Are you talking about just at the very... If it's just within the first few frames, then it's probably because I brought this up earlier about it taking a couple frames to warm up. And that's just doing a pre-render. You just render it a couple frames early. If they look weird all the time, sometimes even the engine isn't having time as it goes. The higher your refinement here, so if you're running it at 8 or lower or something to where your frames are rendering a couple times a second, sometimes the eyes will not have the time to fully close or might not have a time to fully hit their certain looks and emotions. By giving a higher render quality, the frame has more time to process and it actually will put it more closer to where it should be. But yeah, if you're doing a render super, super low, it can render a frame like every 1/5 of a second. And sometimes it's just not enough time. I have a preset on one of my models that says "Walk Happy Argo." Yeah, I think I know which one that is. If I remember right. Oh. Jesus locks. So if you can't import an animation to something, it's because it's locked. Once I unlock it, then you can. Yeah, I think I did a happy walk at some point. There's a happy dance. I think I might have named it something weird. But originally, I think it was supposed to be a trot, and I failed at it so miserably that it ended up just being a funny walk, so I just went with it. Make sure you bake procedural bones before you go scaling a model. Yep, actually, I did bring that up, Shadow King. That is an important thing. How do you make a rotation animation like on Heroes or Rise? I mean, how did you make the camera to move accurately in a circle? I managed to make a similar one, but it took a hell of a lot of time. That is a good one. Yes. Okay. Let me open up a new one here. I'm not going to open up Heroes or Rise because that you want to talk about low processing. So this is a cool little thing that is useful to know. So one of the issues with spinning something in a circle is you have to look at it from the program's standpoint. So the program, and let me just load up some stuff here. So we're going to say new model. We're just going to load up Rainbow Dash again because best pony. Boom. All right. So we want to have a camera spin around her perfectly. So from a camera's or from the engine's standpoint, to have something spin around something that is not locked to anything within the world itself, it is constantly having to manipulate its X and Y coordinates in a smooth fashion, as well as turning and maintaining a target perfectly. That doesn't work out so well because that is a lot of stuff that the program's having to keep data points for, and it does not work. So the best way to do this is to, instead of having it floating in the world, having to keep track of all that values, you break it into two pieces. So what we're going to do, and you can do this a slightly different way, but this is the best way, I think, is I'm going to load up a separate model, and this is going to be our in-between. The one I usually like to use is called a helper. The helpers, they're usually made for adding these to bones that you can see visually where its X, Y, and Z's are, but I just use them for helping because they're just useful for that. So I'm going to grab the big old thick helper. Where's my thick helper? Oh, there it is. Yeah, thick. Okay. Easier to see. So this will be my center of rotation. So I'm going to say I want to have this spin around Rainbow Dash. Well, the nice thing is the root transforms of a model are pretty close to that. So I'm going to lock it on so the roots are locked together, and then zero it. That's going to put it right below her at the center. So I am then going to also do this with the camera. So I'm going to pull the camera out of the void. And I'm going to say that the camera is going to be locked to this helper. So I'm going to take the helper's poly surface and lock it to the camera. If I zero the camera, it's going to go flying into the center. So it's right now looking to the right. You can see in the camera there, it's just kind of looking from underneath the ground. Not what I want. But the reason I had it zero is because I want it looking directly at the model. So by zeroing it, I know that it has all zero rotations. So if I grab just one axis, the one that's pulling away, or that it's looking from, I'm going to pull this backwards. And this actually got spun upside down. So we are going to spin it right side up. Maybe a 180. Oop, not that one. This is this 180. There we go. So I want to make sure I'm playing with the values here. Not if I do this, I now have a different axis I'm working off of. I want to make sure I'm using exact values. So I actually went in here and changed it to a 180. So I do not want to have it deviate from this. I don't want to have it go sideways. I don't want to have it go there. I want to have it go this way only. So I'm going to back it up and say, let's give it a nice low angle shot, and we'll turn it up like this. And now, since this camera is locked to this helper, all I have to do is spin the helper. So now this camera is not changing its 0 or its values at all. Its A or X, Y, Z and its rotations are not changing at all because its world is whatever this helper is. So if this helper churns, its world is churning. It's like saying, instead of, it's like saying that you're in your house and if the house picks up and moves, or if you're in your car, I guess that's easier, and the car moves, you're moving with the car. Your world is the car. So by doing this, then I can have a perfect rotation, and this only has one axis is changing, not X, Y, and Z and all its rotations. It has one axis spinning, and you get a perfect rotation. And then when it comes to doing the perfect spin, like I did in that, what you do is you grab a set time. So I'm going to say like 15. Or so 10 seconds here. And we're going to go, if you look at right now, it's rotation 0, 0, 0 for the helper. Perfect. It's exactly what I want it to be. So we're going to take this, we're going to spin it, and we're going to go almost a full circle. And you can see when I do this, there's a little yellow line that pops up. You just go to just about that circle. Go right about there. Go into here, and you're going to see this value is now not 0. Well, let's make it 0. Boom. Now you got a perfect spin. Oh, that was the one thing I forgot. So, I think I had that backwards. You have to go a little past. There we go. Now it shouldn't do the backwards bounce. Yeah. So the backwards bounce that it did when it went is because it's trying to do the shortest distance between 2 points. And when I didn't quite finish, it's that one, its fastest completion was to go actually in autocomplete back here instead. Weird stuff, but that will work like that. And there are other benefits to this. So you could say the rotation right now is on the root, which means that I could take this and actually have it, let's say, over 15 seconds, is over here, and you can have it like zoom towards it, because you are breaking up all your angles of rotation into different pieces so that nothing is having to deal with multiple axes of rotation and motion to get to where it needs to be. I changed it so that this rotation changed one thing and another rotation only changed one thing. It's pretty nice to be able to do this. I actually did this same effect in here at the very end here when the camera spins away. That was how I did that effect too. I had the two bones. I'm trying to go back here because talk a lot. Yeah, I knew there's going to be a bunch of thick. I had a sudden random thought. Do you do art commissions? I do sometimes do video commissions. I don't really do picture commissions. I have done video commissions, but normally it's stuff that sounds super, super fun that comes up. But I normally don't because I kind of like making my own things. I have thought about opening some up, and actually I have a commission type idea thing that I haven't implemented yet that I wanted to do. But I will one day. But otherwise, I've done, I think, 3 total. It's more of, if it has to sound super fun. I recently did one for equestrian narrator, I think. So I don't think I have it saved here. Oh, yeah, this is probably going to be lots of stuff. But oh, hero, yeah. So like that was this was a one I did as a commission, but is because I was actually there's the full thing for that, but it sounded super fun and exactly what I was looking at doing at the time, so it fit. So that was why I did that one. So anyways, How do I import a model with a preset animation? So I did kind of show that. Once the model is loaded, you just have to right click, import, and it's not sequence, it's not animation, it's sequence. These models don't have any, but if it does have one, you just select it, open, and it pops in. How long have you been animating for? Sorry if you have covered this before. Yeah, no, sorry. People do come in and out. No, actually, I did not. 7 or 8 years, but I have 8,234 hours in SFM. So a lot of time, but it's slowed down a lot. Like I only put on like a couple hundred a year when I used to put on almost 2,000 a year. Is there a particular graphics card your computer has that could possibly be the reason for missing AO? I'm using an NVIDIA 1080 Ti, but I've used 3 different graphics cards before that, and I've never had the issue. So I am, again, I don't know. I haven't heard of people having that issue, but I have seen people be able to control their lights like cameras. Oh, that's actually really easy. So yeah, if you just make a light, because like right now, if you see, if I want to use this camera, I can just drag it into the viewport and that's my camera. It works the same way with lights. So if you have a light, just drag it into the viewport, and now that I am that light. I have a whole tutorial covering lights. It's a long one that covers how Uber lights work and how every one of these sliders works. So if you want more details on lights, you'll get a lot more information out of that one. Okay, yeah, if you have the, or yeah, the GTX 1080 Ti, I like that graphics card. I'm trying to think, because that trick with the helper, I've done that on lots of occasions for other things too. I'm trying to think of some of the other uses I've had for it. Its main purpose is supposed to be that if I wanted to say know how a bone was moving for, let's say, the forearm here, I could just say forearm lock, and now I can see exactly the axes and how it moves. So that's why it's helpful, but I just use it for other things too. But anything that has 2 things interacting with each other like that, you can definitely utilize that with. If you want to have 2 things rotating around each other or something whatnot, because SFM is not very good about very small position changes. So, for instance, if I just try to grab one of these, like you can see here, I am moving, but nothing's happening, and then suddenly it kicks in, but it's not even like matching up. If you get rid of the fall offs, it works, but it doesn't know how to handle very small translations. If you go farther away, then it has no problem. I mean, if you turn her into like spaghetti, then it's fine. It knows exactly what to do. Woo! Woo! So, but it doesn't like some of that. And the nice thing is that you can utilize some of these breaking up of different motions to help fix some of that. That's because sometimes I do want to have just a slight little bounce, and so I'll do something like that. But when it's not timing right, it's stupid. SFM can be frustrating, but it's also one of the easier ones to use out there. Turn her into Slender Pony, and like. Is that close? Or do we need... Wait, let me get rid of the helper. Oh, that's weird. We're not gonna do that one. Let me do this one though. Whoa. What did you have me do to her? This looks like horrible fan art. Like, this poor pony. There we go. Okay, that's a bit too much. There we go. Is that good? Wait. We shall. She's now Wonderbolt. Fly away. Sadly, I can't load any animation on her. It's gonna just. Well, it'll keep the scaling. But you could do some weird, like. Let's bring in. So actually, there is one neat thing I did. So if you go on my DeviantArt and you're starting out, I do have a file. If you go back a little bit. Here. This one is, I took the DMX files for a lot of the videos I've made before, being all these ones. So chemistry, remembrance, Twi-Dash, a bunch of the stuff I've made. And it takes the DMX of per pony and makes it available for download. So I have all those on here, so I can be like, I want Estreo Eastward. And so this is going to be the animation I made of her standing there blowing in the wind. Woo! And all these are free for download, so you can take it. I even put on there yeah, can I use this part of my own animation? I include a file in the release that basically states that you can use it for whatever you want without my permission. So there is like a thing stating you can use this as if it's your own. So if you want to use it for, hey, that turnaround was really nice in that animation, you can use it. This stream will be uploaded to the channel, yeah. So yeah, but that is there. It's like, yeah, Argo DMX pack. Actually, here I'll just copy paste it and put it in there. So if you want that. What was another? Yeah, I go back and I reuse a lot of animation from stuff, so that's why I do this. I had Australia spelt in here twice. This is the one I'm looking for. Yeah, so, oh. That's it then? Oh yeah, I think I needed that exported for something because I stole it and used it for a different video I did. But anyway, did you put the rainbow dash on DeviantArt? No. What am I gonna do? Do you know how many times I do that on streams? Like we make a lot of really stupid stuff. And not long ago, we put Spike's head on Twilight and had him talking because we realized we could copy paste the animation to it. Yeah, that was weird. Don't do that. But anyways, so the intent was to run the stream for 2 hours, but if people had anything else they wanted me to answer or to cover, I kind of gave a lot of the information in terms of basics. A lot of the stuff past that is looking at spending time in the software, playing around with it, and mainly just hitting buttons, knowing what all this does. There's a lot of stuff in the interface, and it's important to take the time to just see what things do. When I started, there was very few tutorials out there, and a lot of it was self-taught. So if you just take the time, you'll learn it. But if you want me to open up any past videos, I can show you examples of certain things. If you, I can try to cover some stuff. Otherwise, that's all I really got for you. That's for today. I hope a lot of it helped. But do you have any videos on how to animate your character walking? If not, are there any tricks? Yeah, well, for one, you don't really need to. That's the nice thing about animation cycles, which I do have like a. Where are you? Oh, I'm just gonna undo that actually. So, and now she's normal horse again. So there are a bunch of sequences you can download, but I have a whole video that covers on how to import them. But the main thing is don't select red transform or it'll teleport your pony. Add scale, or not add scale, what am I doing? Import animation, and then wherever you put it. So I have a folder that just contains all the ones over time that I've had loaded. And so the one that's nice is, there's Walk Happy. So, and it will come with your walk animation. So what you can do from that then is you can copy paste a portion of it. You can drag it and slow it down to make it a different speed. It's up to you. But then you can take this, put it in there, and then move them whatever speed you need to make it work. There's a lot of resources out there on the DeviantArt group. Sorry, I have to use my cheat way to get there. If you go into the SFM animations group, all these are just pre-made animations that people have available, and you can download. So you got running Tempest, walking backwards. Yeah, these are a bunch of the Genma made. Genma's made a lot of the animation resources out there. So you can check those out. So why I have not animated walking or a walk in a long time. I've just used these. It's a community that's big on sharing and helping each other out. So utilize those resources for sure. Take chances, make mistakes. There's this big thing that people are like, don't fuck up, and it's like, no, do. Like, messing up is the best and quickest way to learn. So take advantage of that. If you're not sure if something's going to work, just do it. And if it's wrong, you have undo. And if you're not sure if you can even go back to it, make a separate save file. Then just break it. Yeah, so the animation stuff for walking, yeah, that already exists. Yeah, DeviantArt is a good resource for that. There's a lot of other places for tutorial stuff too, but I don't really know too many of those specifics that are like single people with a whole bunch. And a lot of them are like specific to things to do with TF2 or Overwatch characters. And so I've tried to stick to the ones that are specific to Pony or ones that I just haven't seen have tutorials out there. How much for Rainbow Dash making love to a donkey? Everything has a price, but that one probably doesn't. For one, I don't think this is a donkey, but don't want to have her make an ass of herself. Yeah, it's funny. Anyway, if there wasn't any other questions, then I can cut it here. So if people like this, though, I can try to do this more often. I mean, like I said, I stream twice a week, but I don't want to present content that I'm working on if people don't want to be spoiled. So I keep it separate. What's the best way to prevent SFM from crashing? That's my biggest challenge. Like, should I break up into different scenes or just delete past shots when I'm done with them? So the crashing is not random, but there's just different causes for it. So the one that I actually run into, and I can do it right now, is I have a large number of models that I've downloaded. It's actually one of the reasons that when I went to go open up Remembrance, that I jumped into here and modified this file, was because I didn't want that happening during the stream. So I went and disabled certain games to lower my model count. Because I have so many models, like here it loaded 46,000, and it's a 32-bit software. The SFM only has a certain library size. The more things you have loaded, the more memory it loads. And all the models, when I start to look at these, have to load the texture, and the textures have their own parts in the library. So if I load in too many libraries, so like now, if I go and load in the audio library, and you can see it's loading right there, it will get to a point where the library will hit its capacity and will not be able to load anymore and crash. So there, out of key string values, say. So I hit the max. So I then have to hit OK and close it. Problem is with that, because of that, if I want to do audio, but I loaded the model library, I have to exit the software and reopen it. But that's a problem I caused for myself because I just downloaded too much stuff. But this also just came up, says, you want to load your autosave? Yes. Big thing to know with autosaves. As soon as you load an autosave, it deletes the autosave. So if you go and load the autosave and crash without doing a hard save afterwards, and another autosave hasn't been created since then, you're literally lost everything. So when you load in autosave, you should load the autosave, look at it to determine like you didn't have a different save that was further forward, and then save it immediately. Don't lollygag. Did you see that the visual valve tutorials for SFM would be a good place to start? I think yes. The valve tutorials, the one thing that I don't like about them is that they're old. And if you're looking to do pony stuff, the content is very specific to to TF2 for the beginning. So the basics and the recordings are going to be a lot of TF2, especially recording, because that's about playing the character running forward. So the content might not fit exactly, but it is good information because it will. Just because this record button will never be used if you're not doing TF2, it doesn't matter because now you know what it does and that you can ignore it. So definitely watch them because it's a good place to start. They were well made, but if you want to learn more, you're definitely going to have to spread out. And also, don't just stick to SFM. Look up tutorials on animation. The way that this animates and the process behind it is no different than any other software for 3D animating. So definitely keep up on it. I know you see me recommend those because I recommend the same ones over and over and over again. It hasn't changed. And memory can go red. It was red earlier. It's when it hits about 3,300 that's going to crash imminently. Big question for Australia. How did you go about making the OCs from the story? Was it just recoloring or something else? Yes and no. So I can open that up. I can't open the video file, but it's multiple video files or multiple save files because there is too much in there to survive one save file, the memory limitation. Like all this wasn't OCs. Those are all like public stuff. I think that's Velvet Remedy, and then I just retextured the hair, retextured the body, added some dirt. So that's a retexture. For him, it was Doctor Hooves, and then the hair is actually Super Saiyan 3 hair. And I just put it on there because it looked better in the wind shots later. That's just recolors of ponies, doing my best attempt. Actually, if you look in the back of the scene here, these trees aren't on the ground. They're actually floating and moving. There's an illusion where the whole background is actually moving with them to make it look like they're traveling faster than they are. But in doing so, I forgot to move the trees with the mountain. I forgot his name, but his eyes actually glitched to where you can see through his eyelids. Those are all just recolors. This was complicated. So the hair is actually Rainbow Dash's hair from the EQG models. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4. So 2 going forward, 1 for the top of the hair, 1 for the back, and then 1 for the tail. So there is a total of 5 Rainbow Dashes hovering inside of her. And I just retextured the colors of the hair to be something different, because no matter what I did to Celestia's mane, it still looked like Celestia. But when I did this, it at least felt different enough, and I could go with it. Otherwise, I hated the Celestia mane for that. It just looked like Molestia instead. This was a model, or the face mask existed, the cape existed. I just merged it all into one. I was originally going to recolor the star to be different, but I forgot about it. But it worked well with the horn. So he's just a mishmash of stuff. That's a recolored eyes. This is a monster from Dota that I removed the legs from. This is just a retextured model with... I added, or I took some like leather garbs, and then I added some extra textures and looks to make it fit better. That's just Skyrim wyverns. I actually forgot to remove her horn. So people ask the question of, she can do magic now? And I'm like, oh yeah, she's not supposed to have a horn. That's just one from the previous shot. That's Cavaleron. And these are all the same ones. Him, I just took... I literally removed his jaw by shrinking it down, put another pony's jaw in its place, and then just added textures to make it shiny. So I don't really like how he turned out, because I feel like he's not metal enough, but whatever. It works. And then there's no more past that. So yeah, it was just a lot of retexturing. It's amazing what you can do with retexturing. There's even, in terms of the memory issue, if you go to this one, this shot right here had too many ponies in the shot. There were so many going all the way to the back that my memory was maxing out. So this group from about here, or no, through here, around here, and this group kind of is all unique models that are trying to represent characters. Everybody beyond that is only 6 pony models that I loaded and retextured them all to make them 18, I think. And then I just copy pasted them all over the place. So by doing the retexture, I saved memory on not having to load up a unique model. But this one had so many ponies in it that the memory alone for this shot was capped. So that's why I had to do this like weird copy paste of stuff. You have a fan base in Russia? Well, cheers. I have a glass of water, so like cheers with that, I guess. I drank enough last night. I'm not going to drink tonight. Lag Manor, best stream for sitting on recently. Oh, thank you. I always find this stuff boring, so it always weirds me out when people actually find entertainment in it. I wonder if we do something like that again. Maybe next time it'll be more scene aesthetics. Yeah, I can. I don't mind doing these. Like I said, I do stream twice a week on Twitch. So they're like, come there, like if you want. YouTube is I just want to keep spoilers away. But like I had a stream earlier on Tuesday. The streams to I had brain fart, but I don't plan on stopping these anytime soon because they're a good way to get stuff done. And the main thing is that if questions come up, like, how do I do this? How do I do that? The same question you guys are asking. That's where I actually do it to answer those. That's the purpose of it. So otherwise, I just work on stuff in the meantime. But there will be spoilers. Oh, yeah, that was what I was going to say. There is a group on Steam I have that the only thing I really do with it is I notify, or I put out event notices. So when a stream starts, it'll actually pop up in the corner if you want to use that too. I also post on Twitter and DeviantArt, which I actually forgot to do today. but definitely you can check that out too. It's an open group. Anybody can join. I'll even give you the URL. And you can go from there. So let's see here. Yeah, put the protocols just in one spot. Okay, that's a different question. Is this going to stay up? Yep, the videos will stay up, so you can download it at any time. So I'm exporting a movie into my videos, and it says movie layoff process. How long should it take to export a 60-second video? Or 60 FPS. 60 FPS to 30 FPS is double, twice the frames. It really depends. The complexity of the scene will change how long render times are. The neat thing is that you can actually go back and see your render times. So for instance, if I go back to Mythology, this is fireworks. So if I go into the text file here, it'll actually give you all the stuff of saying the frame rate, the quality of the shot, what the passes were, but the main thing is the time of the frame. So it's saying this one was 3 seconds at the beginning because it was just two ponies with a simple background. But then when it gets into a more complicated shot with explosions, the time goes up. Oh, it actually says the shot here. So Tempest fires lasers, fireworks launch, and then Twilight has regrets. This then right here was where I had to cancel it for a reason, but it started going up into taking 15 to 20 seconds a shot. So it really depends. If I were to reduce this from 256 to 128 for quality, it would have taken half that time. So it just comes down to, do you want it to look good? I usually just do my renders overnight. I'll start it and then I'll go to bed. It works great. I wonder how many rainbow dashes are hovering inside of me. Yeah, I asked the same question. Hopefully none, because that would be weird. Twice as long as a 30 FPS video. Yep, that's what I said. There should be an estimate time at the bottom of the render. Yeah, but that estimated time is based on the processing at a single scene. So if you have a single scene, like right here, and this one is pretty simple and really quick, it'll give you a time based on that. But as soon as you hit this, it's going to get more complicated with maybe a lot more explosions and effects or more things in there, and because of that, it will take a lot longer and it will change the time. So the time's not that accurate. What program do you edit your animations with? I currently have the Adobe CC suite, so I usually use After Effects for video editing. I use Premiere only if I'm working with already made video files. Premiere tries to pull the information directly from the raw files, and when you have 4K image sequences, that makes for a very heavy load on the memory, and Premiere does not do previews well with that. After Effects will do a RAM preview that will take a little time, but it will make it so that it runs smooth. So that's what I normally use for that. For audio editing, I use Audacity. If I need to do any text file editing, it's Notepad. There's also VTF Edit that's used for other stuff, for editing textures within the software. Snagit I find is super useful. That's for doing like screenshots and stuff. I love that. But that one costs money. So yeah, that's just about it. What I use for software. I used to also use a program called it was an old program for Adobe, but I can't remember what it's called now. SpeedGrade. And SpeedGrade would do color correction super good. I'm sad they got rid of it. And so that's where I did most of the cleanup for a lot of files for like changing colorations and saturations and your highlights and your shadows. Did I make it? You made it, kind of. We're kind of finishing up, but you're here. Welcome, Mahadi. It's been a long time, so I don't know anymore. Do you think there's a model for the Super Saiyan 3 Rainbow Dash from the S4 finale? No. Oh, you're talking like the rainbow powered ones? No, I don't think so. No, I don't think there was. I can't remember though. You'd have to dig. I never did any myself, or used any. Do you need specific types of graphic cards for 4K, or is it the monitor? No, you can render in 4K. 4K is just going to take longer. So because it's just going to be processing more. The only time I could see a lower end computer having issues is if it was a super complicated scene. It might just be unable to keep the amount of resources needed to finish a frame. But other than that, almost anything can be rendered in 4K. And then even if you don't have a 4K monitor, it doesn't matter. You can. The one nice thing, and the reason that I upload to YouTube with 4K is bitrate allotments. So it says here, if you render it at 1080, it's going to max out the amount of bitrate, or the bitrate being the amount of information it codes per second. So it's saying that in a 1080 video, its video bitrate standard is 8 megabits per second. So if you do a 2160 or 4K, it allows 35 to 45. So the more information you have in a video, the less artifacting, the crisper, and the cleaner it looks. If you upload a 4K video, even if somebody transcodes it to a lower video quality, it should be a higher quality overall, because it's utilizing a higher bitrate file. So just watching a 4K or 2K video should be a higher quality for that reason. That's why I upload in 4K, not because I want to watch it in 4K, because I want to watch it with a higher bitrate. ShareX, yeah, I have ShareX as well. A reason I have Snagit is because I had it for work and I loved it, and so I ended up buying it myself. Oh, okay, there's actually a good tip. So, okay, if you do want to render in above 1080, so when you go to your export screen, it's going to say about blah, 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 blah. For one, again, if you want to export this movie, you can, but it destroys blacks. It's not good. So an image sequence is going to create it as a series of pictures for every frame that you can go into After Effects and combine them. But when you go in here, it's going to say you're restricted to these specific qualities. I have 1080, but that's because I already did something with this. So, but if you want to do 4K, you're going to be like, well, I don't have it. Why can't I see 4K? You have to enable it. So the way to do that is if you go into your settings for the game. So I'm going to go to my software screen, and instead of Source FilmMaker, I right click it, go to properties, then go to set launch options. All the stuff in here I put in here just because it makes my life easier. So the first one, no P4, is no perforce. Perforce is a preloading thing for particles that's useful when the game is running, but in SFM is kind of useless, and it makes the particle editor take forever to open. So by doing this, you turn off perforce. It doesn't change anything with the processing within the software itself, but it makes this it makes it so when I go and do this, that it pops up immediately instead of having to sit there and preload. So that's useful. These next two are the ones you're going to care about, but this is the main one. What this is for me is I am forcing the engine to utilize a 1080 resolution instead of 720, so that when I go to open that particle tool, it's taking up the full screen. Otherwise, normally to do that, you would have to go into SFM and you'd have to hit, I think it's F10 or F9. I can't remember the buttons for this. There it goes, F11, and you'd have to go into game mode. So you're in game mode here, and then you'd have to go into your settings, and then you would have to go to your video and change it here. This effectively gets rid of that step. So it locks that resolution in. And then the SFM resolution, this is what resolution is SFM running. And what you can see it as is this is the render or the preview quality. So right now it defaults to 720. So if I have this either missing or at 720, it's going to preview at 720. If you have a low-end computer, you want to keep it at that because you want to keep these at a lower resolution because it's less processing. I keep it at 1080 because I'm running a 2K monitor, and I have it changed to 1080 for when I stream. When I'm using it normally, I have extra pixels. Well, a 720 makes it so that no matter how big I make the screen, the preview window is about this big and never gets bigger. That's really annoying. So I always keep it forced to larger. Eats more processing, but at a benefit. If you want to render at a higher quality, though, you type it in. So if you type in 2160 and then you hit OK, you reload the software, and it will then have that option pop up under here saying 2160p. Do know that when it is running that way, that your preview is also 2160, so working in it at the time is going to be a lot more of a headache because it's trying to process that for all the previews as well. So that's the way you do it. 1440, I don't know if that's an option, but I've never rendered out to 1440. My thought is just render out to 4K. If your computer can handle it in any way at all, just do it. You don't need to see it in 4K. It's about just having the video file with the higher bitrate. If you try to shoot in game mode, SFM crashes. Well, it also is super, super loud, and that's why I was trying not to do that. But it used to be that that was the only way to modify fog within a map. Now there's a mod you can download that lets you do that instead. That used to be for how you change the resolution, but then when I looked into it, I just figured out I could change that permanently. Let's go through here. Yeah, I don't want to change the width and the height to always be 2160 because that window, the particle editor, is at 1080, and since I'm running in 1080, it takes up the whole screen. So I don't want to have that pop up at 2160. It doesn't need to be that big to me. If I was running a 4K monitor, maybe, but I'm not. I'm only running a 2K for 144 hertz. Is Argo secretly a pony? Sure, I don't care. I can do whatever you want. The skeleton won't show up when I load it. Make sure that you're in the motion editor or the graph editor. Otherwise, you can't see it when you hold control. It doesn't show them. I have an addiction to high qualified media, high qualified media, so I'm rendering in 4K always. My most strong PC must be crying. It's always better too. I mean, to me, people can still watch it in 1080 online, so why not give them the higher bit rate? So if I want to keep it rendering in all night, how do I make my laptop not be able to go to sleep? You're gonna have to go into your settings. It's probably gonna be under. I don't have it here, but on a laptop usually I have like the power symbol. You just like right click that, go to your power settings, and just disable going to sleep. Sometimes though that they won't because it's doing something. But I can see your problem. I just shut off the monitor and let mine run. I'll go to sleep and then I wake up in the morning, go to work, and you can get like 16 hours of rendering done. That's almost enough for me to render anything. I've only had 2 videos before that were rendering at a high enough quality that it did not finish a render like that, but then I just cut it at whatever the last shot is and re-render it. Holy crap, I accidentally hit F11 sometimes and click, and that gunshot makes me jump out of the skin. Yeah, the gunshot is annoying. That's why I hate that. There's there's Super Saiyan 3 hair on the workshop. That's what I used for the guy's hair before. Yeah. But anyway, I'm gonna probably cut it here though, so I can go relax a little bit. So, but I appreciate everybody coming by. That's super cool. Like I said, I stream twice a week on Twitch, so if you ever want to stop by there and you don't mind spoilers, stop by, and if you have questions or whatever, definitely do. I post on Twitter, DeviantArt, and that Steam group whenever I go and stream. So, I can try to do something like this again. I just don't want to do it too often, because I wanted to keep YouTube to like finished content for the most part. The point of this stream was to help people out, so that's why I'm doing it like that. So, yeah, so if there's nothing else, I'm gonna go. So yeah, thanks for coming. The I'll end the stream how I normally end it, which is with the kitty. So you can have kitty, and then I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for coming. Bye bye.